Hey everybody, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about Scott Ritter, the former weapons inspector who intended to travel to Russia. He was going to attend the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and at the last minute, he was pulled off by Customs and Border Patrol officers and his passport was taken away. He says there's no reason, there was no warrant, no explanation given. They just took his passport, said, "You're free to go." They asked him if he had any other documents. See you later. And that was it. He was planning this trip. Luggage was taken off the plane. That's it. No explanation. And the YouTube personalities in his corner, Judge Napolitano, Larry Wilkinson, they were both actually supposed to be there with him. And they took up his case basically saying that it's been a travesty. Can't believe State Department did this. The question is whether or not he complied with his requirements. We can go over this in a minute, but his requirements were a little bit different than the average traveler, which begs the question, was this whole thing preventable? Regardless, it kind of hurts the credibility when we have to talk about it. Now, the conference was the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. It's a very large conference, probably the largest and most significant economic conference most Americans have never heard of. About 25,000 attendees attended. It's already happened from 5 to 8 June. President Putin spoke there, a number of others. Scott Ritter was going to attend. He was going to be on two separate panels, and afterwards he was going to make a video, a documentary around Russia, taking about 40 days to do some traveling. He talks about what his situation was here on Jimmy Dore. I'll just comment briefly as he explains.
Good. So tell us what happened.
What happened? I was getting ready to board an airplane, JFK, yesterday. Still hard to believe it was just yesterday. Just so the audience knows, this wasn't just any trip I was going on. This was to go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, where I was to participate on two panels, hold meetings with officials, and then go on a 40-day tour of Russia to make a documentary film designed to help promote better relations between our two countries and avoid a nuclear war.
Now, to do this, he would need the business visa. We can talk about that in a little bit.
So this isn't just getting kicked off a flight. This is terminating a project that was 8 months in the making and cost thousands of dollars. So, this is a big time, jab at me by the U.S. government. But
he's characterizing it as a jab, but it depends whether he was compliant or not, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
I was getting on the airplane. This is traveling with a passport that I've been traveling with for the past several years, going to a destination that I've been to several times in the last year.
And was he compliant those times? We can talk about that in a bit.
And this time, the U.S. government decided that I wasn't going to go. They pulled me aside. Three armed Customs and Border Patrol protection, I guess they call it, officers, took my passport and told me that they were doing so under the orders of the United States State Department.
Now, that sounds ominous, but the State Department does issue passports, so that only makes sense that they would be the ones to do that.
They didn't give me a receipt. They wouldn't give me a receipt. They didn't tell me anything other than it was my duty to call somebody at the State Department and figure out what's going on. And then they took my bags off the airplane and escorted me out of the secure zone back into the check-in lobby and told me I was free to go.
Okay, I'm sure that all happened, but I keep mentioning his requirements, and he's in an unusual situation. Those who are aware know that he has legal problems from the past, and you can look this up on Wikipedia. 2001, he got charged for trying to set up a meeting online with what he thought was a 16-year-old girl. He got probation for that. And then again in 2009, he did it again. This time he got prison sentence. He was sent to jail in 2012, in March 2012, and came out September 2014. Now, I don't think any of this takes away from his ability to speak intelligently about foreign policy and about weapons and the current situation. A lot of people love to parade this out and say he can't talk about such and such. Okay, whatever. It's embarrassing, it's awkward, but he is still a very knowledgeable and useful voice on the subject at hand. However, if he's got this in his record, he knows, or his lawyer should have let him know, that this federal office, the Office of Sex Offender Sentencing, Monitoring, Apprehending, Registering, and Tracking, it's a part of the DOJ, they have this requirement, which was put out by the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act of 2006. It's been out here a long time. Registered sex offenders must inform registry officials of any intended travel outside the United States at least 21 days prior to the start of that travel. Now, if he knows about this and he's traveled, he's probably filled this out before. When he traveled to Russia, when he traveled wherever, if he's gone outside the borders, he has to do that. He can't even get a passport card. You would know about this too. We cannot issue passport cards to covered sex offenders. I don't know if he's covered or not, or if that is for more serious sex offenders or what, but he can't get a passport card, which is not useful for air travel, but for overland travel, he would know about that too. His lawyer should let him know. Now, if he knows that he's got these requirements and he filled them out, and he was still denied travel, well, that's a different discussion. But right now, he hasn't mentioned whether he did or did not fill out that form 21 days in advance. Now, the U.S. Marshal Service, even if he filled it out, they would let the receiving country know International Megan's Law compliant complaint form for traveling sex offenders. Okay, this is mentioning the requirement that when you travel as someone in his situation, even if you filled out the 21-day notice, they let the receiving country know that someone with your legal status is traveling there. Russia didn't have a problem with this. They invited him to the conference. I thought maybe the business visa would be a problem, but even on the Russia page for the business visa, you can get a 1-year business visa, no longer than 90 days out of 180, and as long as you fill out these forms, required documents, I think you need a valid passport, picture, visa fee, invitation. He was invited to the conference, a bank statement. They don't want you going over there if you're totally broke. Employer, whoever else. This is the visa he would have had. It doesn't say anything about criminal records or anything like that. Now, to put that in perspective, you can't even travel to Canada if you have a drunk driving offense, and it's something that they're very reluctant to even give pardons on. But there are requirements like that for certain countries. If Russia had anything like that, they would probably list it here in the business visa section. If somebody knows, I'd like to see that in the comments. But that's the big question: is did Scott Ritter file in time with SMART, the office? Did he get, any problems with the business visa? I don't think so, because he already has his ticket. He was granted that. He had to show that. Well, if not the airline, the airline wouldn't check that, but the receiving country would. So that doesn't seem like it was a problem. But if he did all that and then he was denied, then I'd like to hear about that, because that's significant. That means it's a political motivation for just not letting him travel. And that would be a violation. But none of the YouTube commenters have said anything about that. Judge Napolitano or Larry Wilkerson or anybody else, they've just talked about what an outrage it is and how politically motivated it is. And if in fact he forgot to file, he should have just kept his mouth shut, say he missed his plane, say he got sick, couldn't go, whatever, and just leave it at that. But as it is, unless you're clearing this matter up, I know he doesn't want to talk about it, but he's got to mention that he filed all the necessary paperwork and was still denied, because otherwise it looks like he was negligent in filling this out, and that's why they pulled it. But we don't know yet. Did he or did he not file the required forms for his situation, and was he still denied? Because if he didn't do that, that's an administrative screw-up that was totally preventable. And it just brings back more focus on something that he'd probably rather not focus on. And next time he's got a conference, which is in October in Russia, I think he might be going to this. This is a big one, the BRICS Summit in October 2024. Don't know if he's planning to go, but hope he does everything, gets his ducks in a row. And if he's still denied then, well, all right, then we've got something going on politically. But right now, it's really kind of an open question. I don't know if he's filled everything out correctly, and he hasn't really addressed that. Anybody knows, I'd love to see it in the comments. Thanks for watching.